Hey guys, it's the Mad Master here, doing another video, finally. Bet you're all excited. I'm a little bit exhausted, but I'm going to be doing this video anyways. I figured I do this video and talk a little bit about this recent article that's been quite, starting an uproar amongst the blogosphere and the whatever. I'm not going to use any labels because I hate fucking labels. I was going to say, certain things, but so this column, I think it appeared News Press Now. It's some kind of, I think it's some kind of a Southern newspaper or something. I'd have to look it up, or some kind of magazine. So it's called Why I'll Never Date a Feminist. Now, the first thing to notice, and I'm not going to try to sound like a dick here. I'm not trying to sound like a judgmental asshole. But I probably wouldn't have put that picture in as my picture. I would have had, a different picture. I'm not saying, that I'm not remarking about his looks. I'm mostly remarking about the picture. He could have done a better job at, putting his best face forward. Because obviously people are going to think, oh, why I'll never date a feminist. Oh, he's not going to get any. But oh, well, looking like that, who will wonder to say that? People are going to say shit about his looks. So anyways, this is like the 8th of September. Oh, it was updated. David Hon or whatever the fuck. So this is something that I'm going to go into really deep in this video, hopefully. Unless I start falling asleep, and then I'll just it'll be like 30 minutes long or something, because I'll fall asleep and have to wake up and read and finish the video. But this is the thing. So I've dated women that self-identified as feminists, and it'll probably happen again, because this is a very naive thing to say. Well, I'll never date a feminist. So this guy is probably pretty young. I'm assuming that he hasn't really been around that much. And I'm not saying he's a virgin. I mean, I'm not really saying. God, it's so mean. No, I'm not saying he's a virgin or something like that. Or he may even have a girlfriend. I don't know. This article, the problem with making such a grand declaration of I'll never date a feminist, the problem is a lot of women self-identify as feminists, even if they don't really pay that much attention to what's going on. Like, they're not sitting there reading fucking Android Dworkin books all day long, I mean, case in point, it's a few of the women I've dated, I'm thinking of one in particular. I mean, she watched porn, okay? She read fucking young adult literature and shit. She wasn't into fucking pontificating about the patriarchy all day, but she identified as a feminist. And there are a few other ones that I've dated that identified as feminists too, but they're not all sitting there fucking, blogging on Twitter about rape culture or whatever. It's not. So it's a very naive statement to start out, but I'm going to go through the article and just read all the statements and tell you all what I think about it. So it says, if you look for a reason to hate men, your chances are you're going to find it. Okay. The truth is, I don't blame women, especially my generation, for hating men. They've been told there's a wage gap. I disagree. Let's go there, first of all. The wage gap is a very complicated issue compared to what either side has said. So on one end, you say, there's no wage gap at all. Blah, blah. And then on the other side, they say, the wage gap is it's oppressing us. So the truth is somewhere in the middle with that. There is a wage gap, but a lot of times the people that point that out don't consider things like, maternity leave, women being not as aggressive in interviews and stuff. And there's been studies about this. So I'm going by science, and I know that there is a wage gap, but a lot of times people oversimplify it. and blame it all on one thing or the other. And that's the whole problem with a lot of feminism. So that's what I got to say about that. There's a culture of rape on college campuses. That's the second point right here. So I have a problem with that word rape culture, because what I think when I hear these people describe it, is these feminists, a lot of the feminists, you're left to think it's not what they explicitly say. Sometimes it's implicitly how they say it. So you're left thinking, oh, well, there must be this huge movement of men. They're just like, they're writing these things about how to rape women, guides, and like there's movies about how to rape women and shit. Like, you start thinking in your head that's what rape culture is, and of course they define it as something else. But I really do agree that there is no rape culture as far as a pervasive culture. I think there are different segments of the population that have smaller rape cultures, but I don't think there's like a overarching rape culture. I don't believe that, and I could go into more why I don't believe that in future videos if it's so requested. I don't think that. I think there are individual places. Well, the prison is a rape culture. There's no denying that for men. So men are more raped than, and that they've done studies on this. In prison, men are raped far more. At least reported rapes, or even unreported, I guess. I don't know the whole story as far as how that's quantified, but I have read multiple sources that prison has the worst rape problem. So, okay, so the next point, and the patriarchy is keeping them oppressed in almost every facet of their lives. So this is a very complicated subject, because I'm going to say right out, I do believe there is a patriarchy. I do believe there is. This is the thing about it. I don't think it's like a bunch of men sitting there plotting in a room how they're going to oppress women. But I do think that the order has, the order of authority in our society is dictated by men, and majority white men. I mean, if you don't actually see that, you're fucking blind. Let's just be honest. Now, where the problem comes in is when they're trying to like say it's this. They're implicitly almost talking about it like it is a conspiracy. That's where feminism goes haywire. So that's where I disagree with this statement, but I agree. I know why he's saying it. Political issues have been blah blah blah. Creeping in the bedroom, now they're in romance. Because of hateful culture, men are now demanding consent texts on campus. I don't know what the fuck's going on campus. Like, if I go to a college bar, I don't fucking see people. I sincerely doubt a huge percentage of people that are hooking up are really doing that. I mean, it might be some people. Obviously, that's not my age demographic for dating necessarily. Just to offend you. No, I'm just kidding. So, before engaging in raunchy post-party one-night stands, obviously this guy's, wants to have sex, so he has to talk about this kind of shit. So, men's rights activists have taken flight with a new philosophy called Red Pill, which aims to point out how derogatory, hypocritical, and vindictive third-wave feminists can be. Well, that's an oversimplification. First of all, the Red Pill movement is not a men's rights activist movement. They're two separate things. They're not totally different. It'd be like, let's be like calling the Sex Pistols metal. It's like, well, punk and metal have similarities, but they're not the same fucking thing. Or like industrial and goth the same or something, or emo and fucking metalcore. Or, I don't know. I'm just using a musical. Rap and R&B. It's not the same thing. Actually, they're not the same fucking thing. So, no doubt there are men who should be buried underneath a prison. There's plenty of examples how the justice system has failed victims, but it also fails men. That's true. At times it does. The fathers' rights movement reports that only 14% of custodial parents are fathers. Now, when you trot out statistics like that, you have to look at why this shit happens. And just when a feminist trots out some fucking statistic without backing it up, to me, as a critical person, as a skeptical person, they're going to have to explain this shit. So when someone trots out something like this, okay, the father's rights move only 14% of custodial parents are fathers. You think that's just because all these men, their other 80 whatever percent, 86% or whatever, you really think there's that whole 86% want custody? I sincerely doubt it. Now you can almost say it's cultural things, like maybe the men don't want to take responsibility. I'm sure there's at least a huge percentage of that. So when you say these simplified, these quantifications of these, of these statements, they have to have some explanation. But of course, this short fucking article and the internet culture we live in, we don't like concise, nuanced explanations anymore, and that's the whole problem with our society right now. That's probably why Donald Trump is so popular. Anyways. Women are more likely to graduate college, they live longer. Yeah, it's true. And are less likely to die in a workplace. True. Less likely to go to prison. Yes. Extremely less likely to die in wartime combat. Yes. Okay. So that's true. All that stuff is true, and that's kind of a men's rights statement there. Father's rights, whatever the fuck you want to call it. And there is a portion of feminists that are actually pushing for selective service for women. And I actually applaud that. If it's got to be, if we're talking about fairness, let's talk about fairness for real. When it comes to dating, I don't care about that. It's unless you do. Okay, I used to think dating across the political aisle was not only possible but practical. Hell, if James Carville married Madeline, nobody knows that reference, by the way. Only someone who's a total geek like me or this writer knows who the fuck they are. Anyways, if you want a little background, James Carville was like a Bill Clinton campaign advisor. Mary Madeline's like a right-wing advisor. They got married or whatever. Really, mainstream right-wing and left-wing aren't that different a lot of the time. Anyways, they both like to fucking bomb brown people for corporations. So, anyways, like Hillary. Ron. People who are more loyal to their gender and not significant other don't often motivate, blah, blah, blah. They've bought into the battles of the sexist mentality and offer pervasive perceptions of romance. This guy doesn't know shit about traction, first of all. I'm not saying that I'm a fucking stud or pimp or some shit by even saying this, but this is totally naive. Number one, the type of woman that calls themselves a feminist, okay, I'm just going to put it this way. This is going to sound kind of bad. The type of person who, any political belief, they're always going to be a hypocrite if you want to call it hypocrite, in their personal life, in some way. I mean, they're always going to have I shouldn't put it that way. I'm going to say people have contradictions. They're complicated people. They're flawed. So, just as I've written songs that are maybe perceived by some people to be sexist, and I've dated girls that I identify as feminists. I even walk down the street and sing these songs to them sometimes, and they just laugh or whatever, and they identify as feminists. What does that mean? The Beastie Boys that wrote all these sexist songs in the 80s, quote unquote, sexist songs. Married one of the Riot Girl icons, and he claims that it was all ironic back then, but I don't fucking believe that. But anyways, what a person does in their personal life, who they date, really has nothing to do with, or less to do with their beliefs than this guy is talking about. And this guy is totally clueless when it comes to that. I mean, he doesn't understand really the dynamics of what attraction are. And obviously this guy doesn't have a girlfriend. We wouldn't write this. He's obviously, he's actually probably very intimidated by the women that call themselves feminists, and that it's obvious in this article that he is. And I've been there because I read about all this shit like the Shirtgate and Gamergate and all this shit, all this stuff that goes on. But I'm just like, well, when at the end of the day, the loudest people are going to be the face of the movement. Like the girl that recently was like in that guy's, I think it wasn't Uber, it was Lyft. She was in the car yelling about the Hawaiian tiki bobblehead or whatever the fuck. I mean, it's not like you're going to run into those types all the time. That's just that just happens to be the most extreme people are usually the loudest, and people will go along with their shit. I've just been around too long to know that this is just bullshit, because there'll be you'll meet someone. Let's say you'll meet a really a feminist woman, right? And they'll be the stereotypical ball breaker in a relationship or whatever, fucking whatever you want to call it. It's kind of sexist, I know, but they'll be like more dominant or whatever. Then you'll meet another one that has maybe even worse beliefs, quote unquote, and they'll be like passive in the relationship. So it's just people are different. People have different complexities. So, okay, I do believe this next line. There are complex advantages and disadvantages about being a man or woman in America. No doubt, men enjoy privileges and women don't, but the boat goes both ways. I totally agree with that. That's true. And that's what a lot of feminists don't want to fess up to a lot of the time. So that is a true statement. The truth is, these aren't political issues, but deeply personal ones. Oftentimes, anti-male or anti-female rhetoric is rooted in a previous bad experience. Kind of like this article probably is. It's probably lack of experience, obviously. But their cultural opinions reflect our worldviews and thusly affect how we want to raise our families. Now that America is more politically divided than ever, it's impossible to date someone with staunchly different ideals from you. That's bullshit. That really is. I mean, this guy is generalizing about a huge percentage of the population. Obviously, as I got into a fight with an ex once over some of the protests that were happening in my state, and at the time I was kind of a conspiracy theorist, Alex Jones kind of person, unfortunately, and I'm really embarrassed to mention that or admit that. And we got in some arguments, but otherwise, the relationship didn't really revolve around our political differences. We really didn't really have that many political differences. I just happened at the time to be more apathetic about that stuff, and sort of believe in some weird shit. But it really depends. It depends on what you are defining your relationship by. If you're with a woman and you talk about politics all the time, obviously, if you have different beliefs, you're gonna not get along, not have sex, But if you're talking about, if you're maybe making jokes and having fun and having a good time, maybe you happen to be a Republican or you happen to be a leftist or whatever, and you have different beliefs than your significant other, it's not a fucking big deal. Of course, lifestyles and political beliefs often cross over. So that's why partly he's right about that, but partly he's not right. So as far as not dating a feminist, what does he mean? He's being way too general about this shit. He's really jumping the gun on everything. I mean, what is he gonna date someone? I mean, a lot of women that identify as feminists don't even think about that. It's like not even a question. There's like, yeah, I'm a feminist because I believe in equality or whatever. Of course, that's a very convoluted. I mean, in our today's society, identifying as feminist is a very complicated thing because of all this stuff that's going on, and all these different beliefs and these contradictions that are going on. So it's a very simplistic response. But anybody nowadays will say that. In fact, I would be worried in a way if a woman said, I'm not a feminist, but it depends on what they followed it up with. Because I think it's just so common to identify as a feminist, even if I disagree with a huge percentage of what modern feminists or third wave feminists believe in, because a lot of it's just complete and utter oversimplification So for one thing, and I've already talked about social constructionism, and I don't even need to go there because there's so many things that go into gender and sexuality that a lot of feminists and Marxist feminists or whatever you want to call it, or people that believe in Hegelian dialectics or whatever, they believe in this weird vision of reality that nothing is ever scientific or something. I don't know. I don't even know existential. I don't even fucking know. I'm still getting into learning how all this stuff came about. So pardon my ignorance about some of that. So I'm going to read the rest of this article. I'm going to conclude what I think about this dude in this article. Perhaps in several decades this won't be the case. Maybe one day men and women will try to eliminate the lines between us and realize the differences between the sexes and makes romance, family, love, an enjoyable experience. It's a shame that really this divide is widening between the sexes. How so? How is it happening? What is he talking about? Where is this divide happening? Okay, what is he? Who is he referring to? Is he referring to millennials? Are he referring to people that are older than that? Or is he referring to baby boomers getting divorced? Who is he talking about? It's like he's generalizing so much. Plenty of people get married and have children and fucking have romance and have sex and have casual sex. Look at the polyamory movement, for example. If people weren't fucking, why would that be a bigger thing now? It's the truth. So this guy is obviously a conservative, and he's not very experienced in life, or with love, or with sex. It's obvious. I'm sorry. That's the truth. So it's his vision that he gets this like traditional woman that cooks for him and cleans for him, right? So I'm not trying to attack him from the feminist point of view. Maybe it's turning into that in this video, but not. I agree with a lot of what he's saying, but the guy is. I think the article, people's reaction to the article is ridiculous. Okay, the people that are attacking him, I'm sure he's probably received some death threats. I don't know. Everybody receives death threats, but doesn't really excuse it. But I'm sure there's a lot of bullshit associated with this. People are just attacking him, calling for his head, basically, for this article. I just think it comes from a very naive place. Mainly because it seems like there's a message, a hidden meaning to what he's saying. He's obviously intimidated by modern women. He has these old-fashioned ideas of love and romance and all this stuff, which are false to a certain extent. Obviously, you can get it, but it's not the way that this guy believes it could be. Obviously, this guy, I'm not going to go on too much longer in this video. This guy is very naive and very inexperienced. So I don't think we should attack him, but we should question him. What does he mean? What does he believe? Explain to him that's not what all feminists want or mean. Of course, how modern feminism has been, the loudest voices in modern feminism have turned a lot of people off to that idea for good reason. But that doesn't mean that if a girl called herself a feminist, this guy should not run for the hills or should run for the hills or something. That's total bullshit. There's a lot of women that call themselves feminists, and it's just a fact of life. You're just going to meet them, especially if you're into women that are actually not passive or have a life. I'm just being honest. So that's what I'm into. I'm not necessarily saying that I don't like traditional women, but I don't like a woman that's totally passive or traditional. A couple of years ago, I dated a woman that was pretty passive, and it was really off-putting. And I'm not saying I want some feisty bitch or something, but it's just, it was just weird, and I didn't like it. I don't like that. I like equality, honestly, in a relationship. So I don't know what this guy's looking for. It just, he's scared about being single and whatever. But anyways, that concludes this video. Please like and subscribe. Leave some comments. Leave some hate mail. Threaten me. Fucking cajole me about some shit. Go ahead. I don't give a flying fuck what you think. Anyways, go fuck yourself. And I hate my audience. Gigi Allen. Yeah. Gigi Allen once did the same thing that's I hate my audience. So I don't give a fuck. If you like my video, then that's awesome. But if you don't, I don't fucking care. I'm doing them for myself, and people don't like it, they can eat my fucking dingleberries. Have a good night.